Hello and welcome to WooStream, bringing Willamette to you. My name is Tiffany Newton and I lead the Alumni and Parent Engagement team here at Willamette. Today's conversation features Susan Cook, Distinguished Professor from Practice, and Sarah Matsumoto, Assistant Professor of Clinical Education at Willamette University's College of Law. Professor Cook has been in private practice here in Salem, Oregon since 1996, focusing on protective proceedings, estate planning, probate and trust administration. Her practice includes wills, trusts, estate and disability planning, guardianships, conservatorships, and probate matters. She's been an adjunct professor here at the college since 2000, teaching elder law, and spent the last 6 years with our Trusts and Estates Clinic. Professor Matsumoto joined Willamette this fall. She previously was a clinical fellow at the University of Denver Stern College of Law, where she taught at the Environmental Law Clinic. In that role, she supervised teams of students working on oil and gas-oriented permit challenges and oversaw other advocacy efforts aimed at improving water and air quality in Colorado and the Rocky Mountain region. Matsumoto also co-taught the clinic seminar and was a member of DU's Rocky Mountain Collective on Race, Place, and Law. Before joining the DU Clinic, Matsumoto represented plaintiffs in environmental citizen suits at a firm here in Eugene, Oregon. Today, Professors Cook and Matsumoto will share some exciting updates on what's happening at Willamette Law's legal clinics and explore their vision for where the clinic can go as we innovate in this experiential education space. Please join me in welcoming Professors Cook and Matsumoto. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Hello.
Of course. We're looking forward to, going through a whole bunch of different questions. And I also want to remind the audience that they are welcome to submit questions using the Q&A feature of the chat. But the first one is really, if you could both take a little bit of time and kind of walk me through the idea of a law clinic. What is experiential learning and how do clinics fit into that mix of that teaching model so that we kind of all have a general understanding of what it is that you do?
Yeah, that's a really great place to start because I do think if you're not immersed in law school or if you didn't participate in the clinic, it can raise some questions. Professor Cook and I were chatting about this the other day, and I think an easy place to start is to think about a law clinic as a functional law firm that happens to be housed in a law school. So we represent real clients the way that any other law firm would. The students really act as attorneys on the cases, and we try to fill an important role in the legal landscape in the community as well, just like any other law firm. As far as kind of how that fits into the mix of experiential learning overall, I like to think of it as just one piece. So the students in their first year courses and other doctrinal courses are really getting a lot of important theoretical concepts, understandings of the way that the law works, or at least is supposed to work, perhaps. And then if they come to a clinic or other experiential space, they really get to see how the theoretical concepts they learned play out in practice, and maybe how they play out differently in different people's lives. So experiential learning might include a course that's really heavy on simulated experiences. It might include an externship, it might include a clerkship, or a clinic. And one of the ways that a clinic is just a little bit different or unique in terms of the experiential package is that students really have the space to grapple with concepts. So rather than giving them sort of a lot of structure and direction, we might give them, a little bit of guidance, but not necessarily all the clarity they might get elsewhere, because the idea is that we're teaching them how to teach themselves how to learn.
Many folks, and I want to ask Professor Cook if you had anything you want to add before I go on to the next question.
No, that was very well said. I like to, what I've observed as I've taught here is the ability for students to be just a little bit uncomfortable, and but in a very protected space when they have time to. And I always tell them, because they're such perfectionists coming off of all the doctrinal hard work that they've been doing here, that they're always very critical of themselves. But I always tell them, this is the place when the few mistakes you get to make them here, and you learn more from those mistakes. You take it with you, and this is a safe place for you to do that. So that's pretty much the only thing I would add. It's great.
Thank you so much for that. So I know you kind of gave a general picture of how the law clinics fit into a legal education at Willamette, but I'm wondering if either of you could share a little bit more about what it looks like day to day at one of our clinics, what that practice actually is like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, Sarah, I'll just start out and you top it off.
Yeah.
Sarah described it perfectly. We are an actual law office. We have an administrative assistant. She navigates scheduling. She navigates the clinic, the client wait lists, the management of the files. So they really get to feel what it's like to be in an office if they have not had that experience.
Yeah, I think on any given day, students might be working on different types of tasks, but I think one thing that is common or happens on most days is just a really close, sort of granular level conversation with us, with supervisors, of asking those why questions rather than just kind of making a decision without really reflecting or thinking about it, or Susan or myself just sort of telling the students what to do. We really walk through the universe of options to try to assess which one really makes the most sense and help the students understand the reasoning for why a particular choice might be made about how to move forward with any given task.
And I'm assuming, that it's also, they have their list of clients that they're working on. They are calling and, providing information to members of the public. They are doing their own research or seeking expert advice from alumni and other folks. They are also, maybe do they do like case discussions amongst themselves, or are they co-assigned sometimes to certain things as well?
Yes. Actually, yes, that the reflection is a big part of it. We discuss the cases as a collective whole throughout the term. They're partnered up, and sometimes they're partnered with different people on different matters because the matters can be specific, and we want everybody to benefit from the knowledge of it. And it's a time when the hustle and bustle of a regular law firm isn't in place, so we can really take time to revisit things that have occurred and bring everybody else into it. When you were working with 8 students, there's 9 of us. It's really fun to have the overlap with everyone, especially if some experienced something and others didn't. And we have that time and space to collaborate and reflect. The reflection is really the best part, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, this question kind of digs into that a little bit more, because you do treat the law clinic students as attorneys, and with professional supervision provided by both of you to make sure that, they don't get into malpractice before they've even started. But could you explain a little bit about kind of some of the outcomes, like why this is such a rich practicum experience for the students who are able to be involved?
Well, for me, the outcome, is the success rate of to see them from the beginning of the term until the end, the confidence, the skills that they build. They sit in an interview room by themselves with a client, and they tape themselves, and then they can watch the interviews that they conduct, and they can improve, and they can see what they liked about the interview, what they would do different, and they have that ability to reflect. And it's really rewarding to see where they go from the start to the finish.
And one of the things that I think really supports building that confidence to know that you can tackle new and unfamiliar things is that we really focus a lot on transferable skills. So even though the subject matter lens that Professor Cook teaches through is trust in the states, and mine is a little bit more environmental oriented, students are learning how to interview clients and learning those techniques that go into planning for an interview and conducting it. They're learning really critical skills around legal writing, different types of written work product to be sure, but a lot of those skills that you could take to any employment context and be successful when you're faced with something you haven't done before. You could kind of draw upon those transferable skills you learned in clinic.
Right.
It's amazing. And I have to say, it's also probably, the first time that they're filmed, doing an interview has to be such a difficult experience, especially for maybe folks that are a little bit more introverted. But by the end of it, you've probably seen them blossom through that experience into someone who really has confidence to take all of that book learning and writing, skills that they've built up and put that into practice. That's got to be so exciting and rewarding. So the next question is really more about the history of the clinic. And as you both enter this space and kind of take over the leadership and transition, could you explain a little bit about how, like, where you want to go next? How are you conceptualizing this practice space? What's interesting to you? And so I know I'm going to kind of start with Susan, because you've been involved in the clinic for 6 years. I'm hoping you could talk a little bit about kind of how you've gone from being a day-to-day practitioner into providing this guidance. And then we'll get back to Sarah, who's one of our newest faculty members, and talk about her transition into this.
Yes. So yes, I'm transitioning from private practice. It's taking time, and it's also a different mindset for me. I have to slow myself down and not be as rushed to complete tasks, and not do the tasks for my students and let them experience it. So today I found myself taking sign here labels off of documents that had been signed, and I thought, they need to do this. I've done it 100 times. And so I put them back on. So for me, it is a different mindset. And I've been alone here for the most part for a little bit due to COVID. And so having a new colleague here has been just incredible to have the new life, and looking forward to adding another new colleague and just growing. We started back when I started, we had quite a few clinicians. And so I'm looking forward to being back in that space so that students have a wide offering to choose from and can experience different areas, and we can see that crossover for them.
That's wonderful. And I know, Professor Matsumoto, you're coming from a different state. And while you had practiced in Oregon, I know that there's a moving process and a transition process into this. I'm wondering, what you could talk about, what it's felt like being on the ground here and taking this up and starting the environmental side of things.
Yeah, it's been really exciting and fast-paced, like Susan mentioned. Definitely still kind of in transition mode, but I'm just having a lot of fun with it. The students, I have 6 students this semester. I wasn't quite sure, what the interest level or reception would be, so I'm just pumped that I have this much student interest already, and they're really embracing a lot of what I'm asking them to do. I think it might help, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but the clinical experience kind of consists of 3 common components. So we have weekly seminar classes that feel a lot like the other classes students take, but are really focused on those transferable skills. Then the students have their client work or clinic projects that's probably for them the thing that's sort of the most exciting and rewarding, because it's really that hands-on experience of representing someone for real. And then kind of connected to that, or maybe bridging the two, is sort of weekly supervision meetings with a faculty member to check in and provide the guidance and support that students need on those projects. So I took those 3 components, and I know Susan has them here as well, and have started out with those. And I'm really just trying to get a lot of kind of feedback and figure out maybe what's working, what isn't working as well in the classroom, and then just do a lot of networking in the community to try to get established as, one of many players in the legal landscape here, and build some relationship with folks that can hopefully be longtime community partners, and other potential resources for me and for my students here.
Thank you so much for that. And I appreciate you breaking it down, kind of what the full clinic experience is for folks, aside from just the client work, but also that there's a coeducational process, and then the review process, so that there's a feedback loop. And just a kind of a minor question, but does client feedback come into that review process and that supervision process as well?
Absolutely. Because this is a functional law firm, the biggest compliment we get is when our clients refer clients who need us. because ultimately we provide pro bono services, and well, my dream is to have an impact on underrepresented communities, expand pro bono services to impact the community. And so when we get referrals in that way, it's a huge compliment for us. And it's my hope we're just expanding and our influence is increasing.
I appreciate that so much. And I know that Willamette's Law Clinic has been around for decades, and I'm wondering if you both could share a bit, and we'll kind of break this into some pieces about how you want to innovate in this space, but also how the clinic is changing based on your expertise, what you bring to the table, what you're seeing from student interest, and where the practice of law is kind of going in the future. So the first one, if we could, is really if you could go into a little bit about what the current clinic offerings are and the specializations that you both bring to the table. And I'll start with Professor Cook, if I may.
Sure. So I have a will and trust clinic. It's mostly wills. Trusts are a little more on the advanced side. And like I said, we try to stick with underrepresented communities. So we try to offer the services to clients who wouldn't be able to afford the legal fees of the firms. But this last summer, for the first time, I was able to teach a summer session, which gave me a great opportunity to start to handle cases because I had year-round student attorney staffing, which would really expand to estates that need representation, that don't have access to the private firms, or even protective proceedings, which are guardianships and conservatorships. I also would love to expand into elder law, which would be Medicaid planning for long-term care expenses. I still, in my practice, I did adoptions for 10 years, so I still kind of have that as an idea out there, maybe some crossover with my clinic colleagues to do that. So that's my area of specialty, and I'm going to let Sarah describe hers, and then we can describe what we have coming soon, very, very soon. We're very excited.
Yeah, thank you. So I have been practicing in environmental law and working on some environmental justice cases for my whole career, and I'm really excited to bring it here. I know Oregon as a state has had a lot of kind of embracing environmental law, oftentimes being at the forefront of some really kind of cutting edge and key issues. One of the ways that I am really hoping to kind of distinguish the experience here is to think about and focus on a lot of those types of cases or matters. I don't know that cases is necessarily even the right word, but ways to provide service to communities who are experiencing some type of environmental problem, whether it's exposure to pollution or concern about some sort of toxin, that's nearby, and thinking of creative solutions that may or may not look like typical legal cases. So litigation certainly is an option, but there are lots of other options, and a lot of one of the key principles of environmental justice is really about kind of meeting the community where it is and being a great listener and helping to come up with solutions and sort of facilitate those solutions rather than having it be exclusively top down, which is just a different approach to lawyering or different way to think about it. So some of the types of projects that students are working on, certainly traditional litigation is one, because I think a lot of those skills remain valuable, and a lot of environmental law still is kind of hashed out through litigation. But I'm also thinking about ways to catch the fact that we're in Salem and think about model bills or working with elected officials on something at the legislative level or even a local level, like a model ordinance, something along those lines. A lot of environmental law is handled through administrative processes, so supporting agencies, it's always one thing to be kind of suing agencies, but thinking about ways we could sort of proactively collaborate with agencies to help them sort of regulate a little bit more effectively and in a way that serves communities better.
And I think that's one of the defining characteristics of Willamette Law as opposed to some of the other law schools in the state is that we are right across from the Capitol, and there's a higher level of access. And we also have quite a bit of alumni that are connected either through
Yes.
state service or in the state courts or, at that level. So that is a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of, but also find ways to build and help communities in a way that is probably there aren't as many resources as are needed in that way, especially as we consider, the recent UN climate summit and all of the needs that are coming about from those larger topics. And I'm wondering, just to kind of come back to the other thing that you shared, if you could go into a little bit about other areas of expertise or practice that you might bring in the future.
Yeah, well, we're happy to announce we think we're going to be expanding. We've had immigration in the past, and I think that is going to be added to our areas very soon, very, very soon. So we're really happy. We're really excited about that.
That's wonderful.
It's a very popular area for students and student interests. So I think it will be well received by the students. And when it wasn't offered this year, we just had a little lag. We had to field a lot of calls, but now we're going to be able to bring it back. So it'll be great for the clinic and great for the community.
That's wonderful. And speaking of, you kind of touched on the summer session a little bit, but I'm wondering if you could talk about, you said you only 8 students really get to take advantage of like the Will and Trust Clinic. I'm assuming it's a similar number for you, Professor Matsumoto, with the environmental justice. And so that's a really high touch, intensive investment in the training and education of those students. And we have, 400 students in the school. So are there other aspects aside from the summer session where you're trying to infuse these opportunities across the school, or looking into other ways for it to be built in?
Well, we have, of course, extensive externships, clerkships. We have workshop classes that are seminar-based that involve the hands-on hypothetical clients, but with a very, very detailed review process of drafting and interviewing skills. And so there are a lot of ways for our students to especially as they get to their 3rd year, which I think is the perfect time because they've been so well trained in the doctrinal approach, and they're just ready to start applying those concepts and to see what they all mean. And it's wonderful to see that happen in either a seminar style class or have them go and extern for one of my colleagues and reflect back on that experience. And there's just really a lot of opportunity for the students here to do that and the 3rd years particularly. It's really fun to see them just blossom. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
You did. And this is another really granular one. What students are eligible to participate in the clinic? I know we didn't really discuss that. Is it 1L, 2L, and 3L? Or, is there a specific criteria that you have to meet to be able to apply for one of those positions?
Well, we're kind of working on that. It's going to be a group effort. We've been discussing it. It's been fun this year. We're full again for the spring. Sarah's clinic just took off immediately. There was just no leg time there. And so the idea is 3rd years are obviously they are ready, but to the extent that we can fit 2nd years in, absolutely. And the summer session is really going to help with that so that we can really offer more. And 8 is a ideal number. We fudge on that because especially if we identify students early on, the idea would be in an ideal world to identify them very early on their 1st year and help them map out a course of curriculum that would really give them a really well-rounded experience here. So yeah, it's there. We don't have an application process yet. I'm not sure if we'll do that at this stage. It's just trying to, first of all, let the student body know we're here. We want them to know we're removed in a separate building. So sometimes we're kind of forgotten over here. And then second, to identify the ones who want to come over here. And I mean, we were just discussing earlier, sometimes they take one of our clinics and they try it out and it doesn't fit, which is great. I mean, what a great thing to realize, because they are transferable skills, because they've already identified they can learn something new. They can figure out how to, and if you can figure out this aspect, you can figure out a different subject, a different area. And so it's great in either way. So yeah, just the idea that we mostly third years, the ones who want to be over here, it's always disappointing to have to turn anyone away. But I'm really glad we have the option of the summer session. I think that's going to really help with increasing the impact of the clinic. And then we have so many other options that are available to the students too, that they can take advantage of through all the other classes.
That's wonderful. Matsumoto, anything else that you want to add before I get into my next piece there?
Yeah, I just would underscore the point Susan made. I think we're both really excited about ways that we can kind of start talking to students about all the different experiential offerings that we have on day one or even day zero, whatever that might be, so that as students are coming in their first year classes where the curriculum is pretty set, they already have an idea about what they might want to try out in their second year or their third year, or trying an externship in a certain area and a clinic in a different area and seeing how those things balance out. And if they have the ability to speak to their faculty advisor or just come drop by and chat with us in the clinic to get a sense of, hey, I'm interested in this potential career path. What might you suggest in terms of classes to take that would be complementary to some of the experiential offerings we have? I think that will just help really kind of crystallize this 3-year path students are on and think about, what they might want to map out for themselves.
The other thing I want to ask a little bit is that you both had the wonderful opportunity to do clinic stuff while we were in the midst of a pandemic. And I don't know if there were any lessons learned from, maybe using Zoom or just the different ways that we had to adjust to that, and how having such a person-to-person, in-person educational experience maybe had to transition or be paused. I'm not quite sure what the approach was at either school that you were both connected with, but if you could share any of those gems or things that you're bringing forward or being mindful of as we maybe might have to deal with COVID for much longer than we anticipated, or there are other things that could come up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we were in person throughout, because we had to be, to the extent that we had to be, to the extent that we felt safe. And we're small, so we have big classrooms just spread out. And so but it was lonely for the students. We were really, at one point we were only upstairs in the building, and then this summer at one point I realized, when there was a big gathering, not a big, but big for COVID, up in the hearings room, I realized, I think that's our cue. We get to move back downstairs into our office space. And it was missed. It was really missed. But with that said, everything's changed now. So, and in a lot of practice areas, it is a blessing to have remote access. And so initial interviews, document reviews, those, if we can make it easier on clients, if it's more efficient, we can still go with the remote and then kind of a hybrid approach. But to answer your question, Tiffany, it was really good for the students to get back to in-person learning and to just get that face time with each other, that face time with their professors and their clients, and to experience that. So it's been amazing to be back since. And masked up, we're great. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, I agree. It's wonderful to be back in person. I have to say I appreciate the opportunity to kind of be reminded of the importance of flexibility. Certainly, there were many things about COVID that were really difficult, and I hope that we can be kind of looking more forward than back. But I hope you'll indulge me and allow me to brag about a student just for a little bit. In terms of speaking of flexibility, I was working with a couple students who were representing clients in an agency rulemaking, which is sort of like a mini hearing. They were planning to present testimony. It was time limited. There were opportunities for questions from commissioners. And as with any clinical experience, there was a lot of planning, a lot of mooting and practicing. And I was in my final moot with the student the day before she was expected to be called onto a Zoom hearing to present this testimony. And we got an email from the hearing officer that said, the schedule has changed and we're hoping you'd be able to go today. And like a lot of big decisions in clinic, I left it to the student and I said, look, I wouldn't be leaving this decision to you if I wasn't confident that you knew yourself and you knew whether you wanted to take this opportunity or not. If you'd like me to just make the decision, I'm happy to do it. But in true kind of flexible lawyering style, she embraced it. She said, no, if this is what they're looking for, I feel confident, I feel ready, let's go, let's do it. And she did a fantastic job, and I think it was really that added boost of confidence from adapting to something surprising that comes up and really hitting it out of the park. And I just, I love telling that story because I'm just so proud of the experience. And I think it really illustrates the value of the hands-on learning that we can do, even if we're not together in the same room.
Right.
That's wonderful. And I think it also demonstrates kind of the coaching role that you both take on, because you're providing legal expertise, you're an educator, but then you're also mentoring and coaching and cheerleading and trying not to do everything for them, but let them be uncomfortable and stretch and build into the professionals that they're going to be. So that has to be really exciting. And maybe once in a while you kind of are trying to make sure that everything's going okay, or being like, oh, okay, here we go. That has to be really exciting too, to see their enthusiasm for it.
Yes, I love it.
So this next piece, it kind of gets into the networking, getting to know the community of professionals, the legal community around Willamette. It's just kind of the web of different legal practices and processes that we are in here. And really, clinics are set up to be a training environment that pairs students with clients under professional supervision. And I wonder if you could speak to a little bit, besides yourselves, what are the other resources you bring into that, especially when you think of external experts, whether they're alumni, they're judges, they're people that are long-term practitioners, kind of how that community connection happens?
Sure. It was a great day for me today. I attended a doctrinal course that I'm not teaching, and I had the privilege of watching a 2-year graduate speak, and she was a clinical student, but she's amazing. And it is thrilling to see how quickly these careers take off. And then later in the afternoon, for my own workshop class, I had one of our previous clinical students speak, and the amount of time it's taken for him to, once again, I'll use the word blossom into this professional who has transformed, obviously under the supervision of an amazing practicing law firm. And so I have to say, Tiffany, that the clinic, my clinic, I think the entire clinic is highly dependent upon a network of alums and professionals, and they're so generous with their time. If we have a real estate problem that comes up that's outside of our area of expertise, and we can pick up the phone and call one of our alums who specializes in that area, and they're always so generous with their time to help out a student here. It makes such a big difference. So it is. I always start out, Sarah mentioned that we have almost kind of a doctrinal course load at first, and then towards the end of the term, when I think they're getting tired, they're working with their clients, they're drafting, then I like to bring in what I call like a speaker series. And I like to time it with classmates of mine from law school who can give that perspective. And then my new grads, the ones who just took the bar, the one who've been out a couple years, and they come in and they give, and it's obviously a different slate of professionals every term, every year. And it's just great. It's fun. And we wouldn't be where we are in terms of what we can offer without the support of the alums and other professionals in the field.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And being kind of the person that's new to Willamette, I'm really, really excited to get a little more connected and dialed in with the alumni network. I've met a couple folks so far, but certainly more to meet. And just like Susan said, really am pretty heavily dependent on being able to reach out to networks of folks that have expertise that I don't have. I think one of the kind of most exciting parts that's also a little bit maybe scary and vulnerable for us as instructors of clinic is when we are learning alongside of our students. There are sometimes those times where we take on a matter that involves something that we have never done before. I'm considering something right now where I have to go, oh, this would be kind of my first time working on this. What does that look like? It's great because it really builds trust with the students to say, there is a method to what we're doing. If I'm willing to be kind of vulnerable here with you, learning something new alongside of you, let's try to figure out the way how we can teach this new skill to ourselves together. And when you have, somebody with a little bit of expertise that's willing to kind of provide that backup and support for you, it just makes the experience a little bit better because you have, something that can kind of ground you and give you confidence.
I appreciate that. I kind of want to go back to something that you had shared, Professor Cook, around, you kind of try and bring in speakers or bring in people who can model that professional pathway and that experience, both from just 2 years out and being a rock star to being out for a couple of decades and really being able to talk about this wonderful career that they've had that started, when they were a classmate of yours. And I'm wondering if you could talk to really more about that student experience as they are maybe getting slightly more stressed. They are deep into the work with their clients. They are learning and navigating client work at the same time. But they haven't this is maybe one of the first times where they fully considered and been face to face with the lived reality of how legal issues and laws and the criminal justice system impact folks who are sitting right in front of them and what that can bring up for them and how you work with them in that.
Right. I think perspective, I think it's so valuable, and no two professional has the same experience or path and they're always so surprised to hear the ones who didn't pass the bar the first time, the ones who started out in family law and switched over to a different subject area, or started out practicing in a different state and moved here, and their reasons for doing that, and just the rich history that a lot of professionals have that gets them to where they are, and their reasons for the changes. And I think they're just ready to, especially at the end of a term, for especially third years, I think they're just ready to hear from others. It's great. And anecdotes are just case references, real time, that they can sink their teeth into. They get 2 cases in clinic in a term, but if they can hear about 6, 8, 10, 12 from someone who's been practicing for decades, it's even better. So it just brings it more to life, and they can really see what it was they were doing for those years of learning to all of that doctrinal law, what their end game is. They can kind of see that light.
At the end of the tunnel,
as
they're preparing for the bar and everything else that's coming towards them. Sorry, not to make light. I mean, it's a major thing, but it's nice when they can start seeing like that next step, or where that next evolution and transition into their professional practice. I don't.
It was so brilliant today when I heard one of my former students say she didn't pass the bar the first time, and you could just see the expressions. And yes, there is life after not passing the bar the first time. It does. It happens to so many people that it's just wonderful when they're willing to be so candid and down to earth, down to I was where you are too, and And
Yeah.
it's great for students.
A fun anecdote, one of our wonderful alumni, Senator Lisa Murkowski, also did not pass the bar the first time. And anytime she comes back and talks to our students, she is very clear on the failures and successes that she has encountered over, what has been a really strong career and professional, or excuse me, public service kind of pathway that she's taken. But it's one of those things where the students all like take a kind of lean back when she shares that. They're like, she's a U.S. senator. Wait, what? What's going on?
Exactly.
But I don't know, Professor Matsumoto, if there's anything else that you want to add to this before I go on to the next piece.
Yeah, I think, it's really helpful for students to hear from speakers, especially speakers who might be working in a career setting or a particular area that is maybe new or seems unconventional, or it's just not something students have encountered before. So just as an example of in environmental law, I really like to get speakers from a variety of practice settings. So maybe somebody in private practice, maybe somebody in a government role, maybe somebody who works with a nonprofit or NGO, or maybe somebody who doesn't have lawyer as their title, but they have a legal education and they're connected to the sort of overall environmental movement, so that you can really see the mix of paths that you can take.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. So this is something, the clinic is obviously a core piece of what we like to call an only Willamette legal education. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about how the clinic fits into the broader scope of the signature strengths that Willamette Law is focused on, and just the ongoing strategic plan of where the school's headed as we move forward.
Yeah, I think, it's such an exciting time to be here when, I think we're really, really lucky that Dean Galini and all of our colleagues as faculty members are just so supportive of experiential learning. I never feel like I have to sort of justify what we're doing to anyone. Everyone gets it and is just really enthusiastic about it. And so that makes our jobs even more fulfilling and a little bit easier. And this is not a phrase I came up with, but I like it. I like to think of clinics as sort of that visible model of justice. You can really see all the law you're learning in the books kind of put into action. And that connects so directly with kind of the signature strength of advocacy, and really thinking about, when I am acting on behalf of a client, and really putting someone else's interests before my own interests. What does that actually look like in person? How do I do that? What are the tools I might be drawing upon to try to improve someone's life in some way? So that's one way that I like to kind of conceptualize it and think about it.
Right. And Tiffany, I like to add up the number of completed estate plans that my students, just the public service aspect of that, because in the area of estate planning, the number of actual people who have estate plans is actually quite low. And there's this perception that you have to be a millionaire to have an estate plan. And that is absolutely not true. And one of the goals, my personal goal of clinic, is to reach people and to benefit them and to empower them with their own planning. And the students do that, and they realize that's what, and just they have they volunteer on Saturday mornings to meet with clients who can't meet during the week. And you just see this side of these students that brought them here to this institution, that they get to realize it. And so it really fits well at public service. It just, and we completed 3 estate plans this week, and those clients do not have the means, do not have the resources. We go home visits. The students drive their own cars. They're just amazing, and they dig deep into just their soul to represent these clients, and it's amazing. It is a privilege to be a part of it.
That's wonderful. And it's also something where, maybe not everyone thinks that they need an estate plan, but especially as folks are aging or we're seeing, a global public health emergency that has long lasting health, adverse health effects for folks, some
Mhm.
of those advanced care directives or just all those other things that you need to think of so that
Mhm.
you or your loved ones can have those critical decisions and plans
Right.
in place to
Mhm.
protect folks is just so important. And it's so wonderful to hear that students are doing this on Saturdays with their own cars running all over the place, but
Yes.
really like being good community stewards and advocates and
Right.
supporters and putting like literally tires to the road in the service of justice in our community and
Right.
around the state is wonderful.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so before we're kind of going to switch over into some of the questions that have come in from the people who are on with us today,
Mhm.
but before that, I wanted to see if there was anything else that you want to touch on or circle back to before we kind of move over to that side of things.
Not me.
Okay.
No.
I would just mention what I tell my students is, I have an open door policy. So any folks who are listening, alumni, students interested in law school, I would love to talk to you. Feel free to reach
Me
out
too.
anytime.
Mhm.
And would also just mention, the name of my clinic is long, Community and Environmental Justice. And part of that is because I want a little bit of flexibility to be able to meet important community needs and provide students with learning opportunities, even if they're not sort of strictly environmental. So if maybe there's something you're thinking about that could be an interesting project or partnership for the clinic, even if it doesn't have an environmental angle, I'd still love to chat about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So our first question is for both of you. Are you seeing any opportunities for students in Indian law, or I'm assuming Native American, Indigenous law, administrative law, or arbitration
That's
that have come
really
up?
interesting that you ask that, because when I first started at this clinic, I was contacted by, I think he was maybe just retired as the Chief Justice Peterson, and he had sought us out to ask if we could provide support to the Federated Grand Ronde Elder Tribe. And so, since that time, that has been a big part of our client base. And we, prior to COVID-19, would annually or even semi-annually go out to the Elder Center and put on a presentation, and then make ourselves available for the visits out at with the elders in their housing, because the access that increases our access, and they are the most rewarding. They're the best cases, and we haven't been able to get out there since before March of 2020, but we have been able to connect one-on-one in a safe way, to the extent we can, and that is a huge reason that the students here at our law school choose this clinic, is because that is one of our missions. So yes, we do feel that we do everything we can. We dig pretty deep to try to understand the differences between. There are some differences, and so it's a specialty area, and we have a lot of support from the general counsel. They're both amazing. They help us. They mentor us, and it's just been great. And I expect that to continue. So and look forward to it.
Well, that's a
Yeah,
really
and in
wonderful
the
way. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, I don't currently have cases kind of working with or representing tribes or indigenous communities, but there is so much overlap with environmental justice issues that it's something I would love to bring into the clinic, hopefully in the future. You mentioned administrative law as well, Tiffany. That's a big, really big piece of environmental law, and we do currently have a federal APA case right now that a team of students just submitted a pretty substantial merits brief on in the District of Wyoming.
So exciting. Thank you both. And I also appreciate that this allows students to gain some more cultural awareness and humility and work with folks from a different background and really build some mutual understanding in that as well. We have another question coming up in that, is there any particular or specific initiative you'd like to see accomplished within the next 12 to 18 months? So year and a half, is there anything particular within the clinic space that you're hoping to accomplish? I know you have the new immigration clinic, or hopefully bringing on someone for that, but is there anything else?
Good question. I think we're just looking forward to having a unified approach and sort of, I am excited to have new clinicians who can help establish that baseline for us. We're talking about how we manage the clinic wait list and how we manage the client. There's just a lot to, and I'm looking forward to working with the other two clinicians to do that. And that will be roughly about 12 to 18 months. So when we all just kind of, yeah, it would be perfect timing, actually. So it seemed like it was going to take a while, but it's moving fast. And I was amazed when Sarah started that she just jumped right in the classroom. And the next thing I knew, she had a case, and it just took off. So I just imagine that it's gonna move really fast. I'm really excited. And it has been so fun to have the different students, the different clinics, together here again, finally. And now we get to expand that even further. So I can just imagine that we're reinventing a wheel in some ways. And I'm really looking forward to that, to having two other clinicians to collaborate with to do that.
That's wonderful. And so the next question, which is a little bit of a follow-up, but thinking bigger picture and a longer timeline, what does, look out 5 years, what does success look like once you kind of have your new ways of doing, what your management processes are going to be? You've taken on some cool cases, you've worked through a couple more years of students to really get things running well. What would you like to see? You can dream, you can think of things that are practical, but you have some space to go here.
Yeah, I can think of maybe a couple of things. So, like we were mentioning earlier, I really, aside from just continuing to kind of focus on developing and building my own individual clinic, I want to think about, what the 3-year or entirety of law school kind of experiential package really looks like for students, and think about ways that we can help them just kind of understand what that is when they're first starting out in law school. I think sometimes, and I was certainly this way, I didn't have a great sense of what clinic even really was until I just found myself enrolling in one and was still sort of sorting it out. I knew there was a building over there and they did something, but it just wasn't maybe immediately obvious exactly what was going on and what I would be learning. And so just really thinking about, how can 1L students, or when students are even applying for law school or thinking about Willamette, how can we make sure that they really understand that experiential learning, including clinic, is a big part of that. And then, there's been a lot of, I think in legal practice overall, a lot more emphasis and recognition of the importance of experiential learning, conversations about, considering alternative pathways to licensure that are really based on practical experiential learning and outcomes.
Right.
And to the extent we can be a really robust part of that, is really exciting to me. So just thinking about what that looks like, even if something formal isn't in place, I think there is really a growing understanding of the fact that students and practicing lawyers who are hiring students really want a core set of skills to kind of be the baseline starting point for a lot of new lawyers.
Right. That was very well said. I have nothing to add. I want to see just more of the same of what I saw today, Tiffany. I loved having the alums come back and support the new students. And I want to see that kind of legacy of support and community that I know we have here, and just more of it, just increase it across the other subject areas and practice areas.
You're making my job so much easier for me. I love it. No. we will find you some alums. Don't worry. But it just speaks to just how important it is to have an ongoing community effort and investment back into training the next generation of folks who will enter the legal profession, and to make sure that they have the skills that will help them be successful in that space, especially as things change, as you need to have hybrid skills, as there's other things that you have to take into consideration, emerging practice, emerging practice areas. I know we had some like wine law and sports law and some of these other things where I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, but of course it is. And
I
of
loved
course we
it.
need
Yeah.
people that are doing that. So in our final couple minutes, I just want to offer up if there are any other things that you would like to touch on, anecdotes, a little story or something before we sign everyone off and wish them a good evening.
I just want to reiterate what Sarah said, that anyone, whether you're a prospective student, whether you're a prospective client, whether you're interested in, you have a skill set out there that you feel like our profession is a little light on, and you want to help students at this level, and you want to, we would love to hear from you. We are available, and we would enjoy that very much. So I just want to reiterate that.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't worry, we will make sure that your names and emails are all over the place, especially once we post this video. So with that, I will just say, professors, thank you so much for sharing information about the day-to-day work of the legal clinic, how that trains students for future practice in their chosen profession, how you work with community and also offer direct support to our community in this space, and just everything that you're doing to really put our motto, not unto ourselves alone, into practice. This is really one of the clear, places where it is so obvious how Willamette is connected with and giving back to those around us. And so with that, I will wish you both a good evening. For those online, we thank you so much for, yes, thank you. For those online, we thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. If you are interested in staying connected to everything Willamette, please check out our WooStream YouTube playlist. There's all kinds of wonderful content on there, including an estate planning seminar that Professor Cook gave a few weeks ago. If you want more information in that space, we would love to keep you connected and informed. And until next time, we hope that you are staying healthy and warm, and we wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.